now as a spokesperson at Jewish Voice for Labour, Naomi Wimborne-Idrissi. Welcome to the show, Naomi.
Martin.
Seems to be another the Palestine problem once again resurfacing to haunt Sir Keir Starmer. Do you think Labour has an anti-Semitism problem?
That's a very interesting way of putting it. I think Labour has a problem identifying what anti-Semitism is. And as your last contributor just pointed out, there is a big question. Where do we cross the line from talking about Israel in a pejorative or critical way and actually attacking Jewish people? Now, I think a lot, nearly all, of what is being described these days as anti-Semitic or offensive to Jews is nothing to do with anything that is genuinely hurtful or threatening or dangerous to Jewish people. I feel less safe because of the hysteria and the attempts to sort of throw out anybody who's remotely sympathetic to Palestine or critical of Israel from the party. I feel alarmed about that because people think that Jews are people who can't bear debate and discussion about one of the biggest issues in the world at the moment, i.e. what I view as what the International Court of Justice says may plausibly be genocide. We should be able to discuss that, and Keir Starmer is doing the Labour Party no favours by engaging in a sort of ham-fisted purge, an on-off purge against some people and not other people at different times. It's not a good look. And in Rochdale, when it's going to give alternative candidates a look in now, all over the country, there are people standing as independents against Labour because they're so horrified at the lack of opposition to the Tory position on Gaza and Israel.
But Naomi, surely Sir Keir Starmer had to act. Azir Ali basically said that Israel lowered its defences deliberately. So Hamas attacked, terrorists came over the border, allowing then Israel to fight back. I mean, if that's not anti-Semitism, what is?
Well, it's certainly anti-Israel, and it was ham-fisted and inept of him, because to say that Israel positively allowed that horrendous attack to take place is, I think, wrong. However, the Israeli state did ignore clear signs, which is why many Israelis are so furious with Netanyahu. So it's a kind of a bit of a fine line. If it's inept and if the Labour Party believes that somebody with that lack of judgment doesn't deserve to be a candidate, well, fine. But to turn it into a mass hysterical nationwide panic, which makes Jews feel afraid when they do not need to.
But Naomi, Jews are feeling very afraid nationwide. We speak to them all the time on this show. There's been a 700% boom in anti-Semitic crimes since October the 7th. We've seen Conservative MPs have their officers firebombed. We've seen death threats going out. And undeniably, this activity seems to be inexorably linked to the hard left within the Labour Party oftentimes, Naomi.
This is where you're really going completely wrong. The threat to Jews is real, as the threat to all racialized minority communities is real, and it comes mainly from the very far right. And even those MPs who've claimed that they are subjected to horrendous anti-Semitic abuse, the people who've actually been charged and jailed in Louisiana Burgess' case, for example, were far-right activists. So let's get this straight. The threat to Jewish people does not come from Jeremy Corbyn and his friends. I'm a Jewish person who was expelled from the Labour Party because I disagree with the line on anti-Semitism.
Naomi, I just want some clarity. So yeah. Are you saying that the boom in anti-Semitism since October the 7th isn't driven by those who support Palestine, it's been driven by the hard right?
I think if there is real attack on Jewish people as Jews, not offensive remarks made about Israel that upset some people, because I don't think that is anti-Semitism, right? And lots of the offences that are put into the data as being anti-Semitic are not anti-Semitic. They are comments about Israel. Can we please make that distinction? It's not like daubing swastikas on cemeteries or something like awful things like that, which do happen. A lot of it is to do with Israel, and a lot of it is from the far right. And to suggest that left-wing people like me, a Jewish woman, are threatening to other Jews is ridiculous. We're in a moral panic, and we have been for a couple of years now, and it is dangerous to Jews. If the normal population sees Jews shutting down discussion throwing people out of jobs because they say something uncomplimentary about Israel, acting as gatekeepers for what may be part of the public discourse. Martin, I mean, you wouldn't like it, would you, if you were told, oh, my goodness, I hear that you said something a little bit uncomplimentary about Mark Regev the other day. That's the former Israeli ambassador to this country, now a spokesman for Netanyahu.
Naomi,
I think that means that you're an anti-Semite. My
point is people calling for jihad on the streets of London, people smashing windows that belong to Jewish shop owners, Jewish children being afraid to wear their insignia on their blazers to school. This isn't being driven by the hard right. This has happened since October the 7th.
Look, Jews are genuinely frightened. Jews have been made to be frightened over the last, not just since October the 7th, going back to... strangely enough, when a certain section of the Labour Party found it expedient to start attacking Jeremy Corbyn. And we started to be told that there are these terrible sections of people on the left in the Labour Party out to get Jews. I've been canvassing for the Labour Party before I was expelled from it and had to discuss with Jewish people genuinely hurt, genuinely upset, genuinely worried, because the news was full of lies about the extent of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. You have generated fear and panic, and it is so unfair to Jewish people to make that happen. And it's unfair to everybody else because nobody can now discuss the genuine crisis that's going on worldwide about Israel, Palestine, Zionism. How do we deal with what is a genocide, in my view? And the International Court of Justice is looking at that now. We can't talk about it now because people just shriek anti-Semitism. If there is real racial crime against Jews, of course it has to be dealt with, as it does against Muslims and black people and Gypsy Roma traveller people and gay people and so on and so on. I think we have to get some perspective here. This is hysteria. The Labour Party is tearing itself apart because of a misapplication of the idea of what anti-Semitism is.
OK, we have to leave it there. Naomi Wimborne-Idrissi, Jewish voice for Labour. Thank you very much. It's worth pointing out, though, there are only two political parties that have ever been investigated for racism in the UK, and that is Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party and the BNP. So let's just think about that. Hysteria. Well, it's investigations by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. It's not hysteria. It's actual cases that were put forward.